Well, yesterday was Super Bowl Sunday, and maybe you were rooting for the underdog Philadelphia Eagles to fly high. Maybe you were hoping that the Patriots could put an exclamation point on the word dynasty. And then again, maybe you were just tuning in because you wanted to see some crazy commercials. And then again, maybe you didn't watch at all. I can't tell you. I don't know. The only thing I can tell you for certain is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Jeff McAleer once again, and I am your host here at the Daily Dope, as well as being the grand poobah of the gaminggang.com. And welcome back. Yes, it's a brand new week. Today is February 5th. It's Monday. Yes, I know the week is off and running, but where's it going to? I don't know. Anyway, I do want to point out that this week I don't have a sponsor, and that's cool. So I don't have to say, hey, we're sponsored by whoever, and then mess up the ad that I've put together. Like I did on Friday. I was so pumped to get into the unboxing of Dance of the Fireflies from Backspinel Games and Ninja Division. I completely forgot I had set up the ad. Duh, that's what happens when it's live, right? Anyway, there is chat, just so you know, and chat is available through Twitch as well as YouTube. So if you're watching live, you want to chime in, you want to say hello, you got a question, anything like that, by all means, feel free. So today, it's pretty light on the news, which is cool. There were only a couple of items that really sparked my interest today. So that's going to give us more time to take a look at Terraforming Mars, yay! From Stronghold Games. Yes, I have, it was funny because on Friday's show I talked about how I was going to review Shadows of Brimstone, Swamps of Death. And then afterwards, if you notice, behind me is kind of a little bit of a mess because I was starting to tear some stuff apart just to I want to give the background a little bit of a different look, not have all these games just packed in together. And I started doing that, and then all of a sudden I was like, I stumbled across Terraforming Mars, and I was like, oh my gosh, I still haven't done the review for Terraforming Mars. So I have played it a few times, 5 times to be exact. And yeah, dummy me, forgot that I don't have a review for it. So I will be taking a peek at that in just a bit. And wow, I feel like a sneeze is coming on. I don't know, a little stuffy today. I don't know, it started kicking in last night. I don't know what's going on. So I'll have to apologize if you catch me having to sniffle and things like that. But anyway, the rest of the week, I got some things lined up. So tomorrow, I am going to unbox. Oh my goodness, as I pick it up off of the floor. Yes, it is the 2nd edition of Darkest Night from, as I peek over the box. I mean, this is a big box. I mean, look at this. This thing is really, really big, pretty heavy. It's like, everybody's trying to send me boxes that aren't going to fit on shelves. What's going on? But this is Darkest Night, 2nd edition from the fine folks over at Victory Point Games. And if you follow the Gaming Gang at all, you know that we have been pretty tight with Victory Point Games for quite a long time. In fact, since we started in 2010, so it's been quite a while. And this is the new edition. It's designed by Jeremy Leonard, and I will be unboxing that tomorrow, so we'll have lots of goodies to look into there. Then on Wednesday, this won't take a lot of time on the show, but I'm going to show off what we've got in Wing Leaders expansion from GMT. It's Blitz. 1939 to 1942, right? Yep, it's 42. So we're going to take a look at that. I also might take some time out to show you how to play Twilight Struggle. Yes. Because I've been kind of chomping at the bit to do a how to play for Twilight Struggle. So I've got that, and then Thursday is pretty much RPGs. So I'm going to actually review Tiny Dungeons 2nd Edition. I only have the PDF, so it's going to be, yes, it's going to be another one of these showing you a bunch of different images and so on and so forth. What can I do? It's just PDF. I don't have a physical book. And then on Friday, I think I will review Dance of the Fireflies. I believe that that should be a good fit for Family Fun Friday. Anyway, so yesterday was Super Bowl. That was a pretty good game. I thought that was a really, really good game. And I was rooting for the Eagles. I got to be honest. I was rooting for the Eagles. And then towards the end, it looked like, here we go. Tom Brady's going to do it again. He's going to lead the Patriots back to a last-second victory. But Eagles were able to hang on. So anyhow, so yes, I started tearing stuff apart down here. I had, on Saturday, I had actually introduced my 16-year-old nephew, Cameron, to real pen and paper role-playing. And I ended up spending the night over there, and then I got back yesterday kind of later in the day, later than I wanted to. And then I started messing around with some of the stuff behind me, and then it was like, oh, the game's coming on, and so, anywho, and yes, I'm wearing glasses again today because I was setting up Terraforming Mars, and time was running short, and I thought, okay, so what's more important, getting this all set up and hopefully making sure that the audio is in sync on the stream, or popping my contacts in? And I thought, let's make sure that everything's set up and the audio seems okay. So hopefully, fingers crossed as usual, hopefully the audio will be in sync not only for the live stream, but also for when the video gets rendered and saved, because sometimes it's thrown off there too. Don't know what's going on. Anyway, as I mentioned, I've got a couple of news pieces, really 3 news pieces, but the third one is just kind of about a sale, so that's cool. I just didn't necessarily put a whole lot of stuff together, but on Friday afternoon, there was a pretty big development for fans of Dungeons & Dragons. That's right, because D&D brand director Nathan Stewart and D&D franchise creative director Mike Mearls announced Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. And I gotta be honest, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not positive, because you have to keep in mind, I am very familiar with 5th edition. I'm very familiar with the original white box and advanced Dungeons & Dragons, but every version between, I'm pretty clueless. But Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is a new lore rule book which will be coming out this spring. And I do have an official description, and about an hour before I went live, the official release information also came out. So I've got some dope. Discover the truth about the great conflicts of the D&D multiverse in this supplement for the world's greatest role-playing game. That, of course, is according to Wizards of the Coast. Discover the truth about the great conflicts of the D&D multiverse in this supplement. Just said that. They repeated it twice? My goodness. Maybe I just copied it twice. Anyway, moving right along. This tome is built on the writings of the renowned wizard from the world of Greyhawk, gathered over a lifetime of research and scholarship. In his travels to other realms and other planes of existence, he has made many friends and has risked his life an equal number of times to amass the knowledge contained herein. In addition to Mordenkainen's musings on the endless wars of the multiverse, the book contains game statistics for dozens of monsters, new demons and devils, several varieties of elves and Duergar. I believe those are like dark dwarves, I think. And a vast array of other creatures from throughout the planes of existence. One of the most powerful wizards in the Dungeons & Dragons multiverse shares some of his hard-won knowledge with fans in a new book full of lore and monsters for D&D 5th edition. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is going to be available this spring, and you will be able to pick up a limited alternative cover in game stores as well. I will have more about that in just a moment. Mordenkainen hails from the city of Greyhawk, but over the eons he has expanded his mastery of the major conflicts in the multiverse. Similar to 2016's Volo's Guide to Monsters, Mordenkainen's, I guess it's Mordenkainen, doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? Tome of Foes not only contains everything you need to run challenging new monsters at the table with your friends, but also provides tons of storytelling information on some of the most contentious relationships in the multiverse. You'll learn more about the schism between Drow and other elves, Githyanki and Githzerii, and dwarves and Durgar, in addition to reading about the incessant blood war between demons and devils. You would sort of think they're the same, but they're not. Players will love to delve into Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes to search for story hooks to use with their characters, as well as try out some of the player options for races like tieflings and elves, and maybe an otherworldly Githyanki or Githzerii. Dungeon Masters looking for inspiration and greater challenges for players who have reached higher levels of play will find much to explore in the Tome of Foes. Look for Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes in your local game store on May 18th. That is going to be the variant cover, which is the sort of bluish gray background that is swinging past. And that, I believe, is only going to be available in stores that are part of the Wizards of the Coast program, kind of their preferred stores. Otherwise, you will be able to pick up the book on May 29th and start adding new monsters and lore nuggets to your D&D sessions. The Dungeons & Dragons team will be talking about Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes on twitch.tv/D&D in the coming months. And later today, Mike Merles and Jeremy Crawford will offer more insight on what's in the book on Dragon Talk at 2 p.m. Pacific, and also follow-up interviews with the team will be available on the D&D Beyond YouTube channel. So, funny enough, once I wrap up today's show, you can swing on over to YouTube and check out all the additional info that's coming out about the Tome of Foes. There's been a lot of rumors floating around. Like I said, there was a bit of a video that Mike and Jeremy did on Friday. It was Friday afternoon. It was after I'd done the show. And they were talking about a lot of different things, but I don't think they went into a ton of detail. So there are a lot of rumors floating around. Is Greyhawk going to make a return? Because Mordenkainen is supposed to originally be from the world of Greyhawk, which comes from the earliest days of D&D. Although Wizards of the Coast hasn't released any new adventures or stories set in Greyhawk for well over 10 years. The description of the Tome of Foes also mentions planes of existence, and the cover does show Mordenkainen holding a planar compass. So maybe the new book has some updates on possibly Planescape? That hasn't been around since the second edition of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, because I know it wasn't part of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Anyway, as I said, it is scheduled for a May 29th release, with Wizards of the Coast partner stores receiving their copies earlier, and with the variant available as well. The book should carry an MSRP of $49.99, and there is some debate if the book is 192 pages or 256 pages. Also, I should mention Wow, my nose is really getting stuffed up. I apologize. Wow. Kind of getting hit as I go here. Don't think it's the flu. I'm not feeling like really bad. Anyway, I was gonna say with Xanathar's Guide to Everything, they had those variant covers that were available, and they were going for quite a bit. I was seeing them 80, 90, $100 online. I have heard through the grapevine that some of the game stores were actually charging more for the variant as well. And it doesn't seem like Wizards of the Coast kind of put their foot down about that. So I don't know. I have no idea. Outside of just a different cover, the contents are completely the same. So, unless you're really hell-bent on making sure that you get the variant cover, just pay your usual MSRP or save a little bit of dough ordering online or wherever, and yeah, take it from there. Anyway, so of course, come late May, I would think I will have the Tome of Foes to share with you. All right, so my next news piece on Friday's show, I was talking a little bit about different companies and things like that, and I had mentioned, yes, Fantasy Flight Games I don't devote a lot of time to the news for because everybody else is talking about FFG. And I really rarely ever get a chance. It's been years since I've had an opportunity to do a review for a Fantasy Flight game. Which doesn't necessarily mean I wouldn't release news about it, but the whole thing is I'm sort of... if everybody's talking about something, I don't necessarily jump on it and share the news. And then someone who was watching live named Harry, I believe it was Harry Ryan, I think Ryan was the last name, said, hey, I really want to hear more about FFG stuff. I'd like to see some Fantasy Flight Games reviews. And of course I joked and said, yeah, so would I. But I will share a piece of Fantasy Flight Games news because the world of Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars Destiny is expanding with all new cards and 2 new starter sets. Yes, that is correct. I've got a bit of the dope, and for a change, Fantasy Flight Games didn't go and write like a novella about this release, so I haven't had to trim a bunch of stuff. But the new release is called Legacies. A young rebel pilot takes a shot that destroys the dreaded Death Star. A First Order stormtrooper breaks free of his conditioning. A Jedi Knight takes on a young boy as his apprentice. These actions have reverberated throughout the galaxy, cementing these characters' legacies in the Star Wars saga. Fantasy Flight Games is proud to announce Legacies, a new set of booster packs for Star Wars Destiny, as well as the Luke Skywalker starter set and the Boba Fett starter set. And they are all now available at your local retailer or online retailer or the FFG website. With new mechanics, new card types, and new characters, what will your legacy be? Launching alongside Legacies will be 2 brand new starter sets for Star Wars Destiny, the Luke Skywalker starter set and the Boba Fett starter set. Both decks feature 20 cards and represent the perfect starting point for new players eager to get into Star Wars Destiny. The Luke Skywalker starter set features this unlikely hero teaming up with Han Solo during their early adventures. This blue and yellow deck focuses on range damage and features strong yellow events supplemented by blue affinity for manipulating dice. Wow. Holy cow, I may have to jump off camera for a second. Whew. Just... part of it might be a lot of the cat hair floating around down here in the Duct Tape Studios. Anyway, the Boba Fett starter set features Boba Fett, obviously enough, and a veteran stormtrooper. This red and yellow deck focuses on supplementing powerful yellow events with the pure firepower of red cards. Both decks focus on ranged damage. Both starter sets carry an MSRP of $14.95, and the Legacies booster packs contain 5 cards out of a possible 160 with a die, and those carry an MSRP of $2.99. I will be the first to point out that I have never played Star Wars Destinies. I've heard good things about it. My buddy Louie in Mesa, Arizona, he plays with his son Jack. He really digs it. He likes it quite a lot. I don't know if he's always running off and buying the boosters and new starters and things like that, but he has told me that it is a lot of fun. All right, so you know what? I'm going to take a second here. I'm not going to jump into a stay tuned screen or anything. I have got to blow my nose. I will be right back. Oh, yes, a live feed. You gotta love it. Gotta love it. Wow. All right. Let me settle back in here. Okay, so as I said, the legacy releases for Star Wars Destiny are available now, and the 2 new starter sets as well. Luke Skywalker with Han Solo, and Boba Fett with the veteran Stormtrooper. The last news piece I was going to talk about is just basically save you some money, because now last week my sponsor was Adventure Week Games, and I've done reviews of Snow White as well as Rise of the Drow. Awesome. They were fantastic. And last week you had an opportunity to score those in PDF for 50% off, which personally I thought $15 for either one of those was a steal. Of course, that sale ended yesterday. But today, over at Drive-Thru RPG, a new sale has launched for Traveler through Mongoose. And that is, I think there's about 35 different titles or kind of bundles that are available. And you can save as much as 80%. In fact, I swear I saw there's a Traveler starter set, and it's $8. So I was like, whoa. So if you have ever been curious about checking out the Mongoose Publishing version of Traveler, because there have been multiple publishers over the years, you can do so now and save up to 80%. Most of the stuff I saw is about 67% off. But definitely, if you've ever been curious about Traveler, now might be a time to go and check out the PDFs. And I will mention, of course, we are an affiliate at the Gaming Gang for Drive-Thru RPG, so if you are going to swing over, be sure to stop by the Gaming Gang first. Usually you'll find out what kind of sales might be going on, because I normally have a banner showing what the big current sale is over there. But if you click on one of our banners for any of the Drive-Thru sites, and you happen to make a purchase, we'll get a little piece of that. And you'd be surprised. It really goes a long way in helping me to not only keep the lights on here in the Duct Tape Studio, but it also allows me to review different role-playing games that I wouldn't have an opportunity to otherwise. That's how I got my hands on Tiny Dungeon 2nd Edition, which I'll be talking about on Thursday. Okay, so anyway, that is it for the news. Like I said, pretty slow news day. I was kind of surprised. Maybe there's a lot of people with a little Super Bowl hangover as far as the news. They weren't getting it out early this morning like I usually see it. But yeah, so I had a good weekend. Hope everybody had a great weekend. As I mentioned, I got to introduce my nephew Cameron to pen and paper role-playing games, because he thinks Skyrim, and I mean, those are computer and console role-playing games, but there's nothing like a pen and paper RPG. There really isn't. I'll talk a little bit about that on Thursday for RPG Thursday. Wet the whistle a little bit before we go and start taking a look at Terraforming Mars. And once again, space is at a premium. Thankfully, as I move Wing Leader the Wing Leader expansion out of the way. Thankfully, the board to Terraforming Mars is not massive. It's not a huge board. So I'm able to get that in. There are a lot of cards. There's a lot of player aids, player tracking cards, things like that to the game. So I do have some stuff that's kind of off a little bit. But first off, so it is Terraforming Mars. It is designed by Jacob. I believe it's pronounced Frixelius. Sorry, Jacob. Like I always say, English is like a second language to me. Anyway, it is from Frix Games and Stronghold Games. Came out in 2016. And I think what I'm going to do on Mondays is I'm going to tackle games that have been out for a while. Classic games that really deserve some attention. Because I know everybody's always focused on Cult of the New. And trust me, nobody's bypassing Terraforming Mars by any stretch, okay? But I like to get a little love out for some stuff that has been out for a while. I might even break out some old Avalon Hill stuff. I don't know. Gonna dive into my collection. That was one of the reasons why I'm kind of working on some stuff back here, because I want to actually take up some of this. There's a little dead space in the corners on the screen, so I want to get rid of that, as well as show off some other games. Anyway, back to Terraforming Mars. It is for 1 to 5 players. Plays in about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and it's for ages 12 and up. And this is something that I am kind of curious about with the age recommendation on it, because I have said umpteen different times when we're doing unboxings or doing a review, and we'll see a game and it says ages 14 and up. And it says 14 and up, not because of the complexity of the game, but because of the components of the game. In fact, Dance of the Fireflies, I was doing the unboxing of that on Friday, and I was talking about how, obviously, from what we saw, we could tell it wasn't going to be something that was going to be really difficult for people to wrap their heads around. So it was because of the components that it's 14 and up. So I'm kind of curious how Stronghold got around the 14 and up, because there are loads of tiny cubes in this that could easily be swallowed. So I don't know. I honestly do not know. Now, it's very possible that this was actually produced more for the European market. Maybe that's how they can kind of swing through the 14 and up. I don't know. I have no idea. But I just wanted to point that out. It doesn't mean anything. It's just something that I thought was kind of interesting as I try to find some place to put the box down. All right, so the premise of Terraforming Mars is simply that. The players represent corporations who are off to the red planet to try to create a habitable biosphere that will be able to sustain life. And I find it interesting in science fiction that we have seen where a lot of times, especially in the recent years, we've seen a lot more focus on stories, hard science fiction stories, where there's a lot of terraforming going on. Now, I would have to say that really the author most famous for Terraforming Mars itself, writing about it, is Kim Stanley Robinson with, obviously enough, his Mars trilogy. And I do want to point out, in the rules, I thought it was a very cool little nod, kind of a wink to Kim Stanley Robinson, because in the examples of play, there's 3 players and they're named Kim, Stanley, and Robinson. I thought, man, that is really cool. I really, really dig that, because Robinson has won just multiple science fiction awards for his Mars trilogy. That is really, really excellent. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend a lot of Kim Stanley Robinson's science fiction, because I don't want to say it's real hard science fiction. a lot of it's really based in scientific fact or projected scientific fact. But another cool thing is the scientists are usually heroes, you know, they're heroic scientists. So yeah, I always dug that. So the first thing we're going to do, talking about the game as opposed to books, let's take a little bit of a tour around the board. And yes, of course, because my mug is floating around up here, that corner's kind of cut off. But there's really not much that you're missing in this corner outside of the fact that I can bring it down a little bit too. Kind of clear that. Yep, there you go. You can see it. So here's the starting location for a multiplayer game because, as I mentioned, the game is for 1 to 5 players. There are special rules to play it solitaire, and I will tell you, it's a lot of fun solitaire. It's not easy. It's not easy to score really big victory points and be like, yeah, all right. But it is a lot of fun. So you're going to have your starting spot here. I just got this laid out as if we were a 2-player game that we're taking a peek at. So around the board, you're going to see these numbers. And these numbers basically are going to track a couple of things. It's going to track the generation. So really, it's kind of like, what turn are we in? Because, of course, terraforming a planet isn't going to take place over a period of, you know, months, years, or decades. You're talking about generations will be utilized to be working on a planet and all different facets of creating a habitable environment. Isn't it funny how there's a lot of discussion about terraforming other planets, going off to other planets, and I have to say, honestly, myself, I look at it like, well, you know what? Maybe we should focus on the planet we're on. Maybe start looking at maybe not screwing the place up as badly as we have. Then again, we're humans. You know how that works. Probably not going to work out in the end. All right, so anyway, so we got this tracking, and it goes from 1 to 100. And then here, you're going to see this is pretty much the terraforming ranking of each player. And the terraforma ranking actually has 2 different aspects to it. Number 1, it's going to be how much money you're going to get from the Earth governments to supplement your terraforming projects, as well as it's kind of your base victory points at the end of the game. If you're playing solitaire, you would actually start off down here at 14. So anyway, so that is pretty much what that track is for. Then we're going to see we've got arcing across Mars is the oxygen percentage of the atmosphere, because to start off, there's no oxygen on Mars. So of course, terraforming a planet, one of the aspects would be to create an atmosphere which is livable. So it starts off down here at 0, and your goal with the oxygen is to get to 14%. Keeping in mind, terraforming Mars itself, you're not going to finish the game, finish terraforming it, and it's going to be just this wonderful landscape. It'd be like living in San Diego every day. No, it's still going to be a very harsh environment, but it will be a harsh environment that can sustain human life. So we've got that running across there. Then here, we've got the temperature. And it's effectively the average temperature across the equator. And what you're looking to do, you're going to start off, it's minus 30 degrees Celsius. And you need to raise the temperature up to positive 8 degrees Celsius. Now, of course, your whole goal, of course, to sustain life, what do you need? You need water. And of course, that water can't be frozen. So you're pushing the temperature up past the freezing point so that you could have bodies of water that would be freestanding all the time on the surface of Mars. Looking around Mars itself, it's a hexagonal grid. And of course, you're probably going to have to go full screen on this. I do apologize. Simply because I actually have the camera up a bit to get as much of everything into the shot. You're going to see we've got hexagons here, and you're going to see these icons. And the icons are probably a little difficult to make out, so I'll kind of explain what they are. But the first thing you're going to look at is some of these hexes are shaded blue. And these are locations where you can actually place water because of the depressions across Mars' surface would lead to be logical places for you to try to create oceans, lakes. Of course, at this size, we're talking oceans. So you can only place these water tiles on a location that has a blue tinge to it, or blue tint. There are 9 of these water tiles, and they look like so. And these tiles do not have ownership. You can place it. You're going to be able to actually pay to place these water tiles, but there is no ownership for these oceans. So we also have titanium, we've got steel, so we've got 2 ores, we've got greenery. Well, these are actually plants which you use to purchase greenery to place. So we've got plants, we've got a city space. If a city is built here, that's considered to be the capital city right here. We've got if you place a tile, you can get extra project cards. Yeah, it's actually pretty cool the way all of this works out. So you've got the steel, the titanium, you've got the plants, you've got extra cards as well. So you would look at, okay, so, and this means that this is the bonus that you get if you happen to place a tile there. So as I mentioned, we already have the ocean tiles, the water tiles. Then we have greenery tiles. Kind of hold that up there a little bit so you can get a peek there. So you've got greenery tiles. And on the flip side of that, you have city tiles. And I don't know, the way we were kind of looking at it when we were playing it, we didn't really kind of consider these cities, dome cities, more like colonies of terraformers. It's sort of how we kind of looked at it. Because, of course, before you would have all these cities dotting the landscape, you would need to make Mars a habitable place. So that's kind of why we were sort of looking at it that way. All right, so we've got these. And if you notice, they're going to have a little square in the center. Because when you place these, you are going to indicate ownership of both the cities as well as the greenery. Something, as I mentioned before, you do not do with these water tiles. I'm just going to pop that right there. We also have some other tiles that can come into play through projects. Don't necessarily need to go into these, but these will be placed through your project cards, which, of course, we're going to take a look at in just a moment. And then, of course, we've got the first player marker. So whoever's the first player during that generation, because that's what the turns are called, generations, or rounds, whatever you want to say. Each generation, you're going to rotate the first player clockwise around the table. So as we continue to kind of take a tour of the board here, down here we're going to see that we've got milestones and we have awards. And the milestones are effectively, you purchase the milestone, but you have prerequisites to be able to purchase the milestone. So there are 5 milestones: terraformer, mayor, gardener, builder, and planner. So as as a terraformer, you need to make sure that you've got 35 terraforming points along the track here. Mayor, you need to be the person who built 3 of these cities. For a gardener, you need to already have 3 greeneries that you've placed, and so on. Builder, you need 8 buildings, and because those are part of your projects. And then planner means you have a hand of cards that has 16 cards or more. Interesting thing about the milestones is there are 5, you can only have 3. Once 3 of those milestones have been purchased, and they're worth victory points, each one is worth 5 victory points at the end of the game. And once you have 3 that have been purchased, nobody else can purchase any milestones. And each time somebody buys a milestone, it's going to cost them 8 mega credits. That is the currency in the game, mega credits. Then we have awards, and the awards work a little bit differently. So the awards work that you can sponsor an award. So you're paying to sponsor an award. And of course, you're probably going to try to sponsor an award that at the end of the game, you are going to be the best at. So for an example, we've got landlord, banker, scientist, thermalist, miner. So once again, you're looking at, okay, so the banker is the person who ends up having the most mega credits. When you purchase the award, well, I should say when you sponsor the award, the first person to sponsor an award, it's going to cost them 8 mega credits. Then the second, it's going to be 14, and then the third is 20. And as opposed to buying the milestone, which you're going to get those victory points at the end of the game because you fulfilled the requirement and you paid for that milestone, the awards are a little bit different. So you may sit there and say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to sponsor the thermalist. And then it turns out, well, you came in 4th place. You get nothing. You wasted those mega credits. Because with the awards, first place will get 5 points, 5 victory points. Second place gets 2 victory points. Anyone else, nada. You get zip, zilch, 0. So I am actually going to take up a little bit of space on the board here, and I'm going to show you the player card that each player will have. And it's going to track their mega credits, their steel, their titanium, their plants, their power, and their heat. And you will have production in each of these that every generation you'll be able to get paid out during the production phase. One thing that's cool with the cards that are in Terraforming Mars is you've got 2 sets of cards that are pretty much your player aid. So it talks about generation, talks about the actions you can take, talks about the tiles, talking about the different tiles. Then you've got general information. So this is talking about the different kinds of project cards. And then we have the game end and scoring. And of course, the backing on these cards is a little different, so you can find them right away. I know some folks are going to say, well, hey, there's only 2 sets, but I thought this game is for 1 to 5 players. Yes, okay. Maybe there should have been 5 sets of these cards, but you know what? Worst comes to worst, all you got to do is lay the cards out. You can lay them on a scanner and scan some copies to give around to everybody at the table. Heck, you can lay them out, take a picture with your phone, and email it to everybody so they've got them. But I did like that. It was a nice extra little touch as far as the rules, because the game may look like it's complicated, may look like it's really tough to wrap your head around, but it's not. It's not difficult to learn how to play the game. What does take some time for you to come to grips with, and this is just through playing the game. This is one of these sorts of games that you need to play it a few times before things start to click. as far as how are you going to win the game. But I like the fact that these cards are handy, so you don't have to continually be going back and forth and checking out the rules. Now, as you can see here, the rule book is all beat up. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about why it's beat up, but let me just say, oh, and it's ripped too. Look at that. Yeah, it's also ripped. And this was because someone else was supposed to be doing the Terraforming Mars review for me. Somebody who was begging to become a contributor to the gaming gang. And I was like, okay, all right. Okay. And of course, I mean, I was like, wow, I really want to play Terraforming Mars, but I'm also always trying to see if I can get more contributors to the gaming gang. So I don't have to pretty much be the face of like 80% of this stuff going on. And of course, I never got a review. And it took me a while and to actually get this back, with a lot of threats thrown into the mix. But anyway, the rules aren't real long. Game overview. Come on, see, look. It's all beat up. And because it's all kind of crumpled, it's a little difficult to kind of page through here without maybe ripping it worse. But of course, the rules are online. It's not that big a deal. But you're looking at 12 pages of rules, and you got the variants. Then we got the symbols, talking about what each of the symbols represent, the different tags on the cards. Rules are nicely put together. I didn't have really any issue wrapping my head around stuff. All right, so anyway, so every player is going to have one of these cards here, and this is what you're going to use. And you've got all these cubes. So for an example, I'm saying I'm the red player. So I got these red cubes. Now I'm not going to lay out a tracking card for the second player, but I'm pretending that there's a green second player in this game. And then you've got yellow, and then you've got blue, and then you've got gray or black. Can't be black because it's translucent, so we'll say gray. So those represent the 5 players. Then we've also got various metallic cubes. That's just metallic paint. So we have copper, and the copper represents 1. It represents 1 resource. Then we've got silver, and strangely enough, there's a lot fewer silver than there are copper and gold. But silver will represent 5. And then the gold represents 10. And the player will begin with 1 production on each of these 6 indicators here. And I'll just mark them like so. You're going to just put the little cubes down. And then as the game will continue along, so in your first turn, you don't have any stockpiles built up of any of this, except for your money. So you will have your starting cash, which is 20, remember? So just for the heck of it, we'll do that. I'll just use that. So that's showing you got 20 mega credits. Now, the really cool stuff about Terraforming Mars starts to come into play when we have the corporations and we have the project cards. And for me, this is what really gives a really nice story to each of your games. Now, I mentioned previously, even mentioned it last week, I like games that I can play, even though they might be a little bit abstracted, whatever, what have you. Even if it's not even a game that's supposed to be a story, I like games where I can play the game and then in my head, I can kind of put this narrative together. And Terraforming Mars certainly does that. And I love that about this game. So when you're first beginning to learn how to play Terraforming Mars, you're going to get a beginner corporation. And I had to laugh because it says this is a standard corporation doing standard things, right? Okay, so it's going to tell you, all right, so your starting mega credits are 42. You're going to get 10 project cards, but you're going to get to keep all 10 of those project cards. You don't have to pay for them. They will be free. So these starting corporations, these beginner corporations, are also a good way to sort of even things up when you have someone new to the game sitting down and other people are much more experienced with Terraforming Mars. Because these beginning or starter corporations, you're getting more money and you're going to get these project cards that you do not have to pay for. So that is pretty cool. But, like I said, it actually even says these are standard corporations doing standard things. Kind of boring. But we also have all these other corporations. That's right. Ecoline. Hellion. Tharis Republic. Okay, so then what you're going to see is now these have a lot more to them on their cards. So for an example, it's showing that, okay, Ecoline is going to bump up your plant production to, you're going to get 3 extra plant just to start off with, and you will have 36 mega credits. And then a lot of times you'll have like a special ability that you can use during any of your actions during your generation, during that generation. So for an example, Hellion, obviously enough, they produce heat. They're big about heat. Now it's fine. Let's grab a different one. Credicore is Bank of America in space. So they're all about money. Tractor. And you have a variety of these corporations. So at the beginning of the game, each player is going to receive 2 corporation cards, and they're going to choose which of the 2 they want to play. So very cool. Creates a lot of replayability too, because you've got a variety of the different corporations of what, 2, 4, there's more than 10, 6, 8, 10, 12. All right, so there's 12 corporations. For some reason I was thinking there were like 14, but no, there's 12. And so that gives a lot of variety. And of course, once you've played enough times, yeah, if everybody agrees at the table, you can say, okay, well, I really want to play this company. I really want to play that company. Yeah, completely up to you. So then we've got the various different project cards. And they all have backing like this. And just to kind of give you an idea of the different backing cards, just to kind of give you a breakdown of these cards. So you're going to have green cards, you're going to have blue cards, and you're going to have red cards. And for the most part, let's do it for the red. So when you're drawing these project cards, you can choose to purchase cards. And everybody will get 10 cards to start off with, and then they choose to purchase as many as they want. Now, keeping in mind that your resources are going to be based on what it says on your corporation card. So, of course, actually, you would have more than this. You would have more than the 20. All right, so anyway, so we've got red cards, which red cards are pretty much a one and done. And you will normally play a red card against a player. Now, usually it's going to be another player. It's not always good stuff. So it's kind of a little bit of a take that in the game as well. Then again, some stuff you may want to actually have happen to you. So you play it on one player and it's a one and done. And of course, it's going to tell you what is the cost. So the cost is up here for when you buy it. this upper left portion of the card is going to tell you, and this goes for any card, it's going to tell you what are the prerequisites to be able to utilize that card. In the upper right corner, those are considered tags, and all those little icons are explained in the rules. And then it's going to tell you, okay, what does this card do? And there'll be some flavor text usually on it, and it'll tell you what the card does as well. So as I said, the red cards tend to be one done. You then have green cards. Same kind of situation here. Now, I've got 3 cards here that don't have any prerequisites. So this card costs 13 mega credits to buy. Doesn't have any prerequisites when you play it, when you decide to play the card. And then it's going to provide you with these tags on the right side. Now, whereas a red card, you play it and just effectively discard it face down, these will actually stay up. And once you take care of what the card does, once you take care of whatever effects or bonuses that card gives you, it's done, but you're utilizing these tags. You have these tags because these tags will show up as prerequisites on other cards. So that is kind of along the lines of you're building buildings and equipment and things like that are part of your operation, but they're not necessarily things that are going to give you a benefit or ability or something like that each and every generation or during your action phase. Now, sometimes you may see a circle down here in the lower right with a number, and that means that's how many victory points at the end of the game that building or equipment or what have you is going to be worth. Now, for an example here, this card is a blue card. Blue cards you will play. They will stay in play. They will give you some sort of benefit or ability or effect that you can actually utilize during that generation. So this is, you're effectively building or creating something that is going to give you a long-term benefit. And sometimes it might be something that tells you, okay, well, you're going to have to deduct 2 mega credits from your cash production every generation, but you, in return for that, you get 2 of this resource. All different stuff, all different kinds of stuff going on, and all different effects that can be taking place. But I just wanted to kind of give you an idea. There's 3 different sorts of cards that are in this deck. So you're going to go ahead and each of the players are going to get 10 cards, and I'm just going to take 10. You know what? Just for the sake of argument, I am going to put down Ecoline as my company. I know, I was just going to give you an overview, and I'm kind of going like really deep into it, but this game's really cool. Plus, you know what? We didn't have any news today, so why not? Spend a little bit of time. As I take a sip. Plus, reality is once I show you kind of like the setup and what goes on in a turn, there isn't going to be a whole lot left except my final thoughts and my review score. All right, so let's say I went with Ecoline, and Ecoline starts off with, so I'm going to bump up my plant production. So my plant production is going to be 3, and I'm also going to get 3 plants. Hooray! And you're just going to put these like here, right? Okay. Then we've got, what was it? I'm not even going to put it down. Okay, so we got 36 mega credits. All right, so then you're going to have your deck. I'm making sure, wrong deck. Good thing I looked. Correct deck and correct deck. Okay, so, and the other deck where I said, oh, wrong deck, I'll tell you about that in just a moment. So this is, for the standard game, that is your project deck. So pretty good size. Each of the players will get dealt 10 cards. So let's take 10. Yeah. 7, 8, 9, 10. Ah, hey, I was off by just one when I just grabbed it out of here. So out of these 10 cards that you're going to start off with, you can choose to purchase as many of these as you'd like, and they're going to go in your hand. So a lot of times when you're early in the game, you're going to look at things that do not have a prerequisite. Now this is red. This is just a one-time event. But you're going to look to see, okay, so for an example, like magnetic field dome. It's only going to cost 5. Doesn't have any prereqs. And as you can see, it's going to bump up. Once that's built, it would bump up my power as well as my plant production. Hey, we're pretty good already as far as making plants. So we're like, okay, yeah, so that looks pretty good. I might go with that. So it would cost me 5 of my 36 mega credits. Then I've got pets. Another that doesn't have a prerequisite, and this is a blue card. We can see that it is worth victory points, because see in the corner there? All right. Little Fido there. Protected Valley. So, right there. Water splitting plant. Herbivores. Now, I'll give you an example. So you're looking here, and it costs 12. And it also shows that we cannot introduce this card until the oxygen is 8%. So you'll see that we've got the prerequisite. There's another prerequisite, windmills. Well, yeah, we need some atmosphere. We need atmosphere moving around. Tundra farming has a prerequisite as far as the temperature. And so on. Now, you don't have to purchase all, well, you're not going to be able to purchase all 10, but you don't have to really purchase any cards if you don't want. But it's a good way to kind of take a look and say, okay, well, my company is good. My corporation is good at doing this. Maybe I should start off by kind of focusing a little bit on the strength of that company. So just as an example, let's say, all right, I would purchase import magnetic field dome. Yeah, let's do the pets. So, all right, so it'd be 24. So that would leave me with 12 mega credits, and that's what I'm going to put right here. I would end up having 12. So I would have a couple of silver and a couple of the copper. And then everybody's going to do this. They're all going to spend their mega credits to purchase their starting projects that they've got in their hand. Now, anything that they don't end up purchasing gets discarded face down. One of the reasons why you kind of try to take a look at stuff that you could do early is because, let's say, great example, if you got 5 players playing, you'll have 50 of these cards will already be gone out of this deck to start the game. And then each generation, each of the players are going to draw 4 of these cards. So every generation, you're going to see another 20 cards come out of this deck. So this deck is going to get reshuffled multiple times throughout the game. So a lot of times you don't want to tie up your cash in cards that you're probably not going to be able to utilize relatively quickly. Now, that's not to say that you can't run across something and you're like, oh man, yeah, that's a good card. I want to buy that card. Yes, that will happen, but I really do recommend that you kind of try to focus early in the game on smaller projects to get you up and running. Right, so once you've got your projects that you've purchased, everybody's ready to start playing. So you don't, as I mentioned before, you've got these cards right here that's going to tell you what you got to do. So really, in each turn, you can take 1 or 2 actions. And it's pretty cool. I don't know, I had some strange pop-up here. Let me get rid of that. Oh man, I hate these programs now that every time you turn around, they pop up an ad for something from that company. It's like, you know what? Stop that. So anyway, so you're gonna be able to perform 1 or 2 actions, and there's no limit on how many actions can take place in a generation. But what happens is that you're gonna go back and forth. So, and I like this mechanic. This mechanic's pretty cool. So for an example, if you were the first player, let's say you got that first player token, you might be curious what everybody else has up their sleeves. So you might say, okay, well, I'm gonna take 1 action, and you take the 1 action, and then the next player gets to take their 1 or 2 actions, then the third player does 1 or 2 actions, and so forth and so on, and you just keep going around until someone passes. So for an example, if on your turn you did everything you can, now of course early on it's going to be difficult to do a lot of stuff simply because you don't have a lot of resources at your disposal just yet. But I do like the fact that it's not simply that, okay, you get to do 2 actions or you get 1 action and then it moves to the next person and then that's the end of the generation and so on. I do like the fact that there's a variable. There, you know, you may have people doing a bunch of stuff. Everybody at the table does a bunch of stuff in a generation, and earlier on in the game, very little is going on for each person's turns or actions, I should say. So anyway, so as an action, you can play, and I'll just grab a few cards off this deck. You can play a card, do whatever you need to do for the card. You may have to spend resources. You may have to have prerequisites, whatever. So you can utilize a card. So that's considered an action. You can also do what's known as standard projects, which are all down this right here. So as one of your actions, let's say you've got a bunch of cards, it's later in the game, and you really don't see a way that you're going to be able to utilize these cards, or what the cards would do no longer have any effect. You might want to sell those cards off, so you can sell the cards off and get 1 mega credit per card, which stinks because of course you've spent way more than 1 on each of these cards. But you can also spend this, increase your power production. You can spend to raise the temperature. You can spend to put down an ocean. You can spend to put down greenery, and you can spend to put down a city. But of course, early on, you're not going to have a lot of this stuff available to you. But for an example, I had, what did I have? 18 left. So for 18 in my mega credits, I might decide, okay, well, I don't really have a project I can do anything with right now. So I am going to place an ocean because I can spend 18 mega credits and drop water. So I could say, okay, well, I'm going to drop water here. That's my 18 points. When you place a tile, normally you're going to be able to move along the terraforming track. So that gives you 1 point because I'm making a change to the surface of the planet. I can also gain whatever bonus was on this. So I would actually get a bonus of 2 more plants. And if you take a look, you could spend 23 mega credits to get greenery, but it only costs 8 plants to get greenery. So because that is what my company does, obviously something I'm going to focus on a bit is going to be placing greenery around the board. One aspect with placing water is if you're placing water, say next person goes, oh, I'm going to do that too. Well, they would actually get that +1. So they get an extra 1 because you're actually kind of building this area of ocean. So you can do that. You can go around and you can spend doing standard projects if you have the mega credits. And you're just going to continue to go around and do that. And early on in the game, a lot of people are passing pretty quickly because they don't have a whole lot going on yet. They might be able to play a card during one of their actions. They may be able to, or I should say, complete a project, really is what that's doing. They may be able to do a standard project. So things move by fairly quickly early on, and the generations are not going to last very long. Now, once you have completed, everybody has decided, okay, they're done with their actions, everybody is passed, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to finish up the turn, and you're going to have a production phase. So everything that you see on your card, you would collect production. So for an example, my plant production for Eco line is 3. So I know during my production phase, I am going to get 3 more plants. Other companies have other stuff. Other companies provide you with mega credits every turn, or I should say, every production phase. Some do other things, power to heat. It's really cool how all of this really works. It's really, really interesting how all these little mechanics kind of mesh together to make this a really, really cool game. So eventually, you know, you're going to have cities, you're going to have plants, you're going to have, of course, all this here. And then, of course, when you place, for an example, when you place the tile for the greenery, you're actually going to move up your oxygen, because the oxygen level, of course, one of the first things you learn as a kid in one of your first science classes ever is that plants bring in carbon dioxide and they expel oxygen. So I thought that was pretty cool. Then, you know, as you're putting water down, you know, you're basically getting closer to having it terraform. Then you're going to do stuff with your heat, right? So if you have 8 heat, you can take your 8 heat, or you can basically spend 14 mega credits and you can raise this up to the next level as far as temperature. And then you're just continually, as you're doing your projects, you're also taking these standard project actions, and you're just moving closer and closer to this becoming a viable, habitable planet. So what eventually will happen is you need to get to the point where you have all 9 ocean tiles out there. You have to have your oxygen level up to 14%, and you have your temperature up to 8 Celsius overall. So those are the 3 criteria that are going to end the game, because there is no built-in time limit or anything like that. It's not, well, we play 20 generations, and then we end it. No, you play until the planet is habitable for human life. And that's something that I thought was really cool too. And that's one of the ways that the game plays just as well with 2 players as it does with 5 players. And it just takes a little bit longer with 5 players, and especially when people are new, because they're looking at all the different project cards. And that is part of the reasons why it takes a few playthroughs of the game before things start to click. Anyway, you don't do this in the first generation, but every generation following that, remember I had mentioned that you're going to be able to draw cards and purchase more projects? That's actually the first phase of the game, is you're going to draw 4 cards, and then you're going to decide, okay, are there any of these that I want to purchase? And you can purchase all of them, you can purchase none of them. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's completely up to you. Do you have the money? And does it look like this is possibly something that you could complete in a relatively shorter period of time where you're not tying up these mega credits in projects that are hundreds of years down the line? And then once again, you'll purchase which ones you want, and then first player, okay, take an action or 2 actions, your choice, and just continue with all the different players doing what they can until they decide to pass. And of course, one of the actions is to either purchase a milestone, sponsor an award. Those are considered actions. Playing a project is considered an action. Doing something where you're placing a environmental counter, token, whatever you want to consider it, tile, is an action. And then it moves to the next person. Once everybody's kind of wrapped their heads around the basics, which, like I said, it's not a difficult game to understand how to play it, then things start to move along pretty well. It's just when you're going and you're like, okay, so I've got these options for these different projects. And you're like, oh, okay, Martian rails. Huh, that sounds cool. That's where it starts taking some time in the game for the first, easily 3-4 games that you play. But it doesn't get to the point where there's like tons of analysis paralysis that I found, simply because you start kind of putting together a game plan early on in your first games. Now, one thing I will point out that is very easy for some players to do is to think, okay, like Ecoline, right? So I'm sitting there like, all right, Ecoline, wow, we're great with the plants and everything, so I'm going to really focus on dropping down these forested areas, and we're going to really work on getting this oxygen level up. Well, yeah, okay, that's great until you get up to the 14%. Then, if you spent all your focus on just this one aspect, you've already maxed it out. So you're really not going to be getting any benefits of improving the oxygen level. Same way with the temperature. Same way, well, with oceans is a little bit different. You're really just kind of laying down the tiles. But, I saw it with some players who were like, okay, well, this is the focus of my corporation, so that's really what I'm gonna go for. And then eventually it gets to the point where all they've done is they've spent all their resources on buildings and stuff like that. They're providing a single sort of resource. And while they may have kind of jumped ahead early on, now suddenly they're going to start falling behind everybody else because everyone else is taking a more balanced approach. So I always recommend that's how you kind of want to approach it as your corporation is. Yes, your corporation has this benefit, but this is not the only thing you want to do. And if you do see some other players out there who do seem to be heavily focusing on one aspect, take advantage of that. Start getting some other technology, project cards and stuff like that. Start looking at different awards, different milestones, and kind of, try to block them out of those points, or sit there and try to take on different aspects of the terraforming that is kind of being ignored. So as I said, as I knocked a card off of this deck, as I said, really, it's just kind of looking at the projects, kind of getting an idea of what they do. That takes players some time, and it's just repeating play of Terraforming Mars that it's all going to start to make sense. It took me like 2 games before I was like, okay, so I get the basic mechanics of it, but I'm sort of like, I'm kind of all over the place here. I don't know. There is a solitaire variant, which is cool, which is very, very cool. And there's actually like non-player cities that have been laid out and stuff like that. So you can play it solitaire. It's best with other players, don't get me wrong. But the other thing I'm going to mention that I thought was really cool is there's an expanded game, and you'll see you've got this whole other deck. And if you look close, you'll see there's just this little, just in the bottom left, see along the edge of the card, there's this little kind of red circle. It's got kind of a, yeah, it's got like a triangle in it. These are corporate cards, and this is sort of the part of the aspect of this is where it's kind of earlier in the whole process, and you know, it's kind of the, I don't want to say monetization of the terraforming project, but it adds in like a lot of really cool stuff. So as opposed to, well, for the most part here, you're just kind of, you know, you're just scientists, and it's a corporation that the scientists work for, but you're still, you know, working to make this planet a livable place. With these corporation cards, it throws in all these new wrinkles, and it is really, really cool. Little more take that involved in the game when you have this additional deck shuffled in with all the projects. So very, very nice. I really, really like that, because it's almost like 2 games in one, or 3 games really, because you got the solitaire, you've got the standard game, and then you've got the addition of the corporation cards. Really, really nice. I thought that was a really cool addition to the game, because honestly, if that wasn't even part of it, you're still getting a whole lot of gameplay with all these projects in that. All right, so that effectively is how the game, you're going to be taking your turns. So at the end of the game, what you're going to do is you're going to tally up your victory points, and strongly recommend one person does the victory points and everybody else kind of makes sure that it's being done correctly. So what would have happened is, if I had been dropping these, I would have my color on here. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your base score from your terraforming points here. So let's say we were right over here. Let's say 57. Okay, so you would take your 57, and then you're going to take a look at, okay, next thing I look at is, what does the planet surface have? You're going to score 1 victory point for each of your tiles. Now, some of the tiles will have additional victory point conditions to them, especially next to the oceans. So you got to keep that in mind. And then as well as the cities. So you got the cities as well. You've got these other special tokens that come into play based on various project cards that might be out here on the surface as well. But for the most part, you're going to take care of that. Then you're going to take a look to see, okay, so what we got as far as the milestones and the awards. So you're going to say, oh, okay, well, so-and-so's got these milestones, are 5 each. Then you look at the awards. All right, who has the most cities? Okay, well, if that was an award that was sponsored, because remember, there's only 3 of each, they'd go, okay, well, you get 5 victory points, and then second place gets 2 victory points. And then you're going to go through any of your project cards that are face up. Remember, your green and your blue cards stay face up. You'll go through any of those, and you're going to look to see, okay, what victory points have you gained from those cards? And then you just tally all these up, total them all up, and whoever has the most victory points are going to be the person who really had the biggest impact on making Mars a habitable planet. So overall, I have got to say, as I bump the table, as I'm going to switch cameras here, I have got to say that I am so glad that I asked Stephen Bonacore if it was okay to review Terraforming Mars. Now, I got this back in Origins, and I have not had this in my hands for quite some time. So I have to say, I always love talking to Stephen. And of course, you see Stephen Bonacore on just about everybody's podcasts and videos and everything else. He's a lot of fun, and he is a great ambassador for the hobby. And Stronghold Games comes out with a lot of really cool games and a variety of different genres as well. Now, I would say that Terraforming Mars is, from the games that I have had an opportunity to play from Stronghold, and there aren't a ton, I'll be the first to admit, a little meatier than their usual titles, but that's good. I like meaty games. Like I said, I really love games where you're playing it and you kind of have a story, and with all the different projects and things like that, and then some of those red cards that can meteor hit blue player over here. Oh yeah, and remember, that kind of changed things up, and things started going downhill from there. A blue player. It's just really cool how a story emerges from playing the game. Like I said, it's not difficult to learn. The basics of the game are pretty easy. Once everybody understands, okay, get one or two actions. These are the actions I can take. Awesome. One thing that I noticed with some of the players that I had, some of the teenage members of the gang, they weren't paying too much attention to the prerequisites when they kept trying to play their projects. And it's like, no, you've got to have, the temperature has to be 3 degrees Celsius or higher. You can't play it. Oh, okay. So that was kind of like no fault of the game, but it's kind of easy for some players to kind of lose track of things, because there's a lot of things you are kind of keeping an eye on as you play the game. The only item that I sort of would toss out there as far as maybe like dinging it a little bit, two things. One, I would have thought these player cards, these kind of tracking cards here, it would have been nice if these were like cardboard, if they were on boards as opposed to just, kind of flimsy paper stock. Okay, no big deal. And sometimes the artwork's a little hit or miss. Not a lot, just a little hit or miss. I mean, just nothing where it's like, oh, I can't even look at this card, it's so ugly. It's just a little unusual in some spots. For the most part, the artwork's really cool, and it, once again, giving you some flavor, and you're like, ooh, yeah. Hey. All in all, I think Terraforming Mars definitely deserves its reputation that it's got. I mean, a lot of people are out there playing it. I'm sure there are plenty of people who are still picking up Terraforming Mars. There are 2 expansions that are available. In fact, Venus. All right, need a sip. I haven't taken a sip in a while. Throat's getting kind of dry. There we go. Venus Next just recently came out, and of course, that is taking the whole terraforming experience to Venus, so that's very cool. Plus, there is a reason why everywhere you turn now, there are many games that have Martian themes, and terraforming is part of even the 4X games. Oh, they're like, and terraform planets. Yeah, there's a reason why, and it's because Terraforming Mars has done so well for Stronghold Games. And to be honest, I think the success of the game probably took Stephen Bonacore and the rest of the Stronghold gang a little by surprise. I know they knew they had a good game on their hands, but I think they might have been a little surprised by how well it took off. Okay, so all in all, I definitely feel that anyone who enjoys science, anyone who's into science fiction, realistic science fiction, or what a lot of people would consider hard science fiction, Terraforming Mars is a no-brainer. Absolutely must-have game, needs to be in your collection. For those of you out there who like lighter games, very light fare, stuff that you're able to crack out and play with 3, 4, 5 players in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, no, I mean, there's no way. You're not going to be able to finish this game and experience Terraforming Mars you need to in that shorter period of time. So if you like real quick games, or I don't like to say filler games, I like to say wind up, wind down games. Whereas, it's a great way to start off your gaming night before everybody gets there, or it's a good way to kind of bring the gaming night to a close with a nice half-hour game. No, Terraforming Mars isn't it. And if those are the only games you like to play, then no, I'm afraid it's not going to be really up your alley. Everybody else, huge thumbs up. I think Terraforming Mars is excellent. Just like I said, couple of quibbles with kind of the components, but nothing huge. And I really enjoy it. I have played it solitaire a couple of times. Haven't done all that great, but I enjoy the solitaire experience. I enjoy playing it. I've played it with 2 players. I played it with 4 players, and I played it with 5 players. And every variation with the number of players, it has played just as well, and everybody has had a blast playing it. I've mentioned before that the gang are real big fans of like Clank, a deck building adventure. It's like, oh yeah, it's got to be in my car at all times in case I'm over at my brother's house. And that's how Terraforming Mars is becoming. That when we got enough time, and it's definitely a game I don't think my good buddy, my best friend Elliot Miller at voiceofe.com has had an opportunity to play Terraforming Mars. So I got to make sure that I get a game in with Elliot. Although there isn't a lot of confrontation between the different players. Granted, you do have some of those red cards, those red projects that you can kind of do a little take that. But I think he would super dig Terraforming Mars as well. Overall, I give Terraforming Mars a 9.3 out of 10. Granted, there are some gamers out there, it's not going to be up their alley, but for a vast majority of gamers out there who like really cool games that play just as well with 2 as they do with 5 players, it really is a must-have for your collection. Anyway, all right, actually went really long in this. Well, you know, hey, I always try to do about 90 minutes. Come on, you know, and just a couple of news pieces today. So I thought, yeah, we could kind of mess around, kind of dig a little bit into Terraforming Mars from Stronghold Games. One last item I do want to mention, as I talked about in the news piece, if you have interest in checking out now I can't think of the character's name off the top of my head, the Tome of Foes from Dungeons and Dragons, for Dungeons and Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. That is actually going to go live in about 27 minutes on the D&D YouTube channel, so be sure to check it out. I'm actually going to probably pop in and see what's going on too. Even though I don't run D&D, I do dig it. I do think it's a good system, and I do like, obviously enough, I've got plenty of their 5th edition books. I do like to see what's going on with it. Anyway, once again, I am Jeff McAleer, and if you like the Daily Dope, be sure to give the video a little thumbs up. If you don't, it's okay if you thumb it down. I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But please subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel for, of course, the Daily Dope, as well as convention coverage. I've got something on the horizon I might talk about later on this week once I iron everything out. And otherwise, until next time, when you're not watching the Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Come on, by now, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I will be back tomorrow. I will be doing, oh my gosh, the unboxing of Darkest Night 2nd edition from Victory Point Games. So until then, have a wonderful Monday. I hope your week is off and running well. And I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.